IVM.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
The Baiga people, the oldest known race of the Indian subcontinent, the earliest written accounts of whom date to 1867, when a Brit, Captain Thompson, in his settlement report described them as the wildest of the known tribes, known to inhabit the most inaccessible hills and jungles, extraordinarily shy. Oh, that's like me. Living on what they can with their bows and arrows, known to fish in rivers and tattoo their bodies with a special ink made with the powdered skin of snakes. For whom Jaipal Singh Munda argued for protection, a home for tribals. And yet, in 2014, hundreds of families of the Baiga people were evicted from their homeland. Today, scores of them work as daily wagers and live in our ever-burgeoning cities, evicted, dispossessed, alienated from their way of being. What's going on? Hello and welcome to the longest constitution. My name is Priya Mirza, and every week we look into how the constitution has been used and at times abused to serve power. We are looking at multiple issues around work, from the rights of those who don't use WhatsApp or have an office to work in, and those who are supposed to work honestly as public representatives. And we are questioning, what is work? What is the state obliged to uphold, and what does it disregard? In today's episode, we delve a little deeper into the immunity of members of parliament and what that was supposed to protect and how that has been interpreted. Our first story today is about power and a prime minister. P.V. Narasimha Rao. The year is 1993, and the Congress government has been elected to power in 1991. But following the demolition of the Babri Masjid, riots and communal outbursts, to put it mildly, leads to the dismissal of BJP-led governments in a few states. And it's in this divided time that the P.V. Narasimha Rao government faces a no confidence motion in parliament, which, if passed, would mean that his government would fall. But money, money, money in a rich man's world. Abe, we've also seen how men routinely protect themselves, such as a previous episode where a member of parliament got away with using pepper spray in parliament. And that's certainly not the intention of the immunity granted by Article 105 of our Constitution, which reads, no member of parliament shall be liable to any proceedings in any court in respect of anything said or any vote given by him in parliament. So remember that, in parliament. And the whole idea of immunity was to protect parliamentarians from outside pressures and certainly not to abuse democratic processes. And let's mull over that for a minute. And also remember that there are laws to keep the process free from influence, from big money. So, for example, how much money a candidate can use to spend in an election campaign, to how one votes in parliament. The overall idea is to keep candidates and representatives free from influence and remain independent and true to their conscience. Increasingly rare. And with that, we go back to the Baiga people. So, Jaipal Singh Munda, who, apart from being in the ICS, studied economics at Oxford, returned to India, and established the Adivasi Mahasabha, a man who stood up for his people and argued for land for the tribals on account of their distinct race, culture, and livelihood. They don't make men like that anymore, do they? And in response to this, the Constituent Assembly put constitutional safeguards for the scheduled tribes. Safeguards sounds so fiercely protective, but the question is, guarded from whom? So under the fifth schedule, tribals are guarded from us city dwellers, for whom spotting the tiger and putting that blurry, pixelated picture on Instagram is so the highlight of a safari trip. So, the fifth schedule grants autonomy and land rights to the scheduled tribes with a specific understanding that it is land and their land and they have autonomy over it. And this was recognized by the Panchayats Extension to Scheduled Areas Act 1996, which requires the Gram Sabha, that's locals, to have a say in any matter which concerns them and their land. But at the same time, road to banane hai, mining to karni hai, factories bhi khade karne hai. Lands under tribal dominated areas are possibly the richest in natural resources. So let's get back to more familiar spaces like cities, which have roads and buses need drivers. Sorry, I'm being painful today. Okay, our last story today is about a bus driver. Randhir Singh was a driver constable in the Delhi police force under the Delhi administration. And yet, other bus drivers driving equally heavy vehicles seem to be getting paid more. Drivers in the Railway Protection Force, drivers in the non secretariat offices, drivers in the secretariat offices, drivers in the office of the Language Commission, drivers of the fire brigade, drivers of the department of the lighthouse. Lighthouse? Hold on. I didn't know Delhi had a lighthouse department. So, as it turns out, we Delhiwalas do have a lighthouse and lightship department under the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, and their mission is safe navigation in Indian waterways. And that's brand new information. Delicious. Anyway, now Randhir Singh, apart from navigating safely on roadways, had a problem. That though his work was the same as these other guys, he wasn't getting the same pay for that work. Equal pay for equal work. 5 words. So we have been looking at different kinds of work, but this question is different. Is it legitimate to keep a different pay for the same kind of work? That is the question. And he filed a writ petition. Anyway, what happened to Narasimha Rao's government? So the government went on to complete its full term since in the no confidence motion, 265 MPs supported its continuance, while 251 MPs voted against it. However, the CBI discovered and uncovered evidence that Narasimha Rao and his party colleagues offered bribes to MPs from 2 smaller parties. What? Vote ke liye paisa? Hai toba. And in this bribery case, which was considered in PV Narasimha Rao versus State in 1998, this is what the accused and corrupt clearly said, that they have immunity granted by the Constitution. In this case, the court ruled bizarrely that the legislators could not be prosecuted since the alleged misconduct was about voting inside Parliament and hence protected by Article 105, Part 2. So the court says that there's a difference between bribe givers and bribe takers. That the bribe givers could be prosecuted, but those who took the bribe and voted inside Parliament could not be prosecuted because of the constitutional immunity granted by Article 105, Part 2. What? Justice Agarwal, though, dissented and stated that legislative privileges could not bar prosecution, and because this was a question of bribes that was closely connected to speaking and voting inside the chamber, they actually could. But dissenters ki sunta hi kaun hai? So let's get back to the Baiga people who over the last 7 decades have been displaced and evicted. Yeah, man. What are the chances of claiming land in the face of development projects like roads, dams, resorts, Indian tourism, and tiger reserves? So today's takeaway is that forests are being cleared of people who can actually have a claim to live in that land without 4G and Odomos. And second, people who ought to have been prosecuted for accepting a bribe to vote in parliament were not. Truly jungle Raj. Meanwhile, in Randhir Singh versus Union of India, 1982, for the first time, the Supreme Court first constitutionalized the right to equal pay for equal work, which is a directive principle in Article 39, Part D of the Constitution, and grounded that equal pay for equal work stems from Article 14 of the Constitution and that the government could not deny equal pay simply by splitting the workforce into different posts or different departments. Yay! But nothing to get too excited because this was 1982, and since then a lot has changed. But more on that later. Did you like the show? You can follow me on Twitter, where I tweet at fundamentally and on Instagram, The Longest Constitution. Until next time, this is me, Priya Mirza, signing out.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, we've hit our 700th episode. That's 700. Public speaker and professional development guide Tonya Lyon speaks to Ashton about how mindfulness and stillness can be transformative. On Ek Chuski Finance, Priyanka has an interesting story which urges women to take charge of their personal finances. On Pulyabazi, Pranay and Saurav debate whether prohibition is an effective policy when it comes to curbing alcohol consumption. On Audio Gyan, Kedar speaks to Hemant Jha. He is the founder of Honest Structures, and they discuss designing aesthetically enticing products. And on Marathi Khidkitun, the Deshmukhs introduce us to some lesser-known heroes that are working towards the betterment of society. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you enjoyed this show or any of our other shows for that matter, do please tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. You can check us out on YouTube as well. On ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, we have a list of all of our YouTube channels. Do check out if your favorite show is available as full video. We are also doing a small listener survey to better understand how you respond to our shows and advertising on the network. We'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors for this week, SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app. Thank you so much for making this possible.
सफर, रास्ते, मंजिल और मुकाम अक्सर ये हमसे कुछ कहना चाहते हैं, पर हम हैं कि अपनी रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में इन्हें सुनने से कतराते हैं। नमस्ते दोस्तों, मेरा नाम है केशव चतुर्वेदी और मैं आपको ले चलूंगा कुछ ऐसे सफर पर जहां आपको एक नया नजरिया मिलेगा सफर और मंजिलों को देखने का। आइए इन किस्से कहानियों में डूब जाएं। हर मंगलवार और शुक्रवार